Time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello everybody, welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom. This is a show where we wake up with the Saturday morning sun, pop down before the big bowl of sugar cereal, and try your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And this morning, we watched As Told by Ginger.
This was suggested by Fradomon via YouTube, he's suggested a few to us in the past. So thanks for continuing to listen and continuing to suggest things, Fradomon. At least hopefully he continued listening. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just throwing stuff out there. He's not listening anymore.
This was a request I think we got like a year ago. So,
wow.
I mean, if you still listen, thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
we
Fradomon.
love you.
So, did we decide that he's a Pokemon or a Digimon?
You know, I'm not sure. In fact, I'm trying to figure out, like, I feel like he would be, I don't know, some sort of Pokemon, but like a really obscure one. Like, you know how they have those like symbols that are Pokemon? And I don't remember what they're called, but they're these weird
unknowns.
Symbols.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I feel like he would be one of those, but it would be like a math fraction looking thing.
Fradomon. No, see, I think he's Digimon because they all had that Mon after their name.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember.
I didn't know that. I've never seen it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember like any of their names really, but it would be like T-Rexomon or something.
T-Rexomon? Oh, God, I like it.
There is one that is a T-Rex. I just can't remember its actual name.
Its name's T-Rexomon now.
Well, it's Fradomon for, yeah. So, As Told by Ginger aired from 2000-2006. It's created by Emily Kapnick. Produced by Klasky Supo and Nickelodeon Animation Studio. Ran for 3 seasons, 60 episodes on Nickelodeon from 2000-2004, Nicktoons Network from 2004-2006, and then it ran again on The Splat in 2016. For a short synopsis, this show follows a preteen girl named Ginger Foutley along with her friends as they try to fit in school, a social life, and trying to avoid any embarrassments.
Nice. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And
like, I feel like that doesn't give it enough credit, though, but yeah.
No, absolutely not. And I'm just going to tell you, like, offhand that I don't think a cartoon has made me tear up since Life with Louie. I don't think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this one did it 2 episodes in a row for me at different parts. So
yeah, I know what you mean. I almost got there. I didn't, but like I had that feeling where you just feel kind of emotionally drained and you feel just very dry on the inside.
Yeah.
And you have that like kind of like, I don't know, just emotional nervousness inside of you for no real reason. Like you feel it in your chest a little bit and your throat's really dry and like your sinuses feel heavy. Like I was sitting like that for like a half hour after watching this show.
It didn't drain me. It made me like, it was kind of like happy tears in a way, teared up in a good way. I don't know. I'll explain it when we actually talk about those episodes.
Hopefully you bottled those because I think you can use those in spells.
Happy tears.
Just in case.
That's an ingredient. So who are some of the actors who played in this show?
All right. So the voice of Ginger was provided by Melissa Disney. I don't know if she's related to the famous Disneys. Maybe. I mean, if I was, I would definitely keep the name. But anyway, she is known for also voicing the character of Blade from Batman Beyond, and she has been in several video game franchises, including Baldur's Gate and Fallout. The character of Carl voice was provided by Janine Elias, who was the voice of Boof from Teen Wolf. Do you remember Boof in that cartoon? I think we saw her for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And also the voice of Princess Toadstool from the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and Beth from the Oblongs.
Nice.
Ginger and Carl's mother, Lois, was voiced by Lorraine Newman, who worked on Saturday Night Live from 1975 to 1980, and also appeared in several other shows like Hysteria, The Oblongs, Seventh Heaven as Rosina Glass, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz as the Wicked Witch, and Nana from Troll Hunters. The voice of Dodie was Aspen Vincent, who has a real cool name, but hasn't done like a whole lot other than this show, aside from some video game voices. Like she has several voice credits for EverQuest 2. The voice of Macy was provided by Jackie Harris, who's been in television shows such as The Big Comfy Couch and Where My Dog's At? ? I don't know. I don't know where her dogs are at. But if you see them, please let Jackie Harris know. The voice of Hoodsy was Tress McNeil, which really surprised me. And I was trying to place the voice because it was so familiar and I just couldn't place it. But yeah, now it makes sense. If you're not familiar with Tress's work, she's a very famous voice actress. She has voiced Chip from Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Babs from Tiny Toon Adventures, Colleen from Road Rovers, which is kind of an obscure show, but I loved that as a kid and I can't wait for us to do it one of these days. Debbie Douglas from Freakazoid, Dot from Animaniacs, Charlotte Pickles from Rugrats, Daisy Duck in tons of Disney cartoons and specials, and also does lots of voices for The Simpsons and Futurama. And then finally, the last character I have on our list for today is Darren, voiced by Ken Michael, who also played a character named Michael in The Parenthood. Apostrophe hood.
The Parenthood. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure it came across not as Parenthood, but Parenthood.
I mean, I'm sure Parenthood is the name of some other things, but yeah, the only one I know is that live action one.
I think Parenthood is another television show, but this is Parenthood.
Yeah. So for a few tasty marshmallows out of our big bowl of ginger cereal, which sounds kind of funny, the series was praised and noted for the fact that it had ongoing story arcs and characters who developed, aged, and changed their clothes throughout the show, which is rare for an animated series.
Nice.
And yeah, that is something. I mean, we saw kind of three different styles because we saw the pilot, which was way different art style since it's just a test version. And then we saw a season 2 where they were still in junior high, I think. And then the last one we saw, and then the last one we saw, they were actually in high school. So we saw those.
We didn't really get to see much of that in play, but I guess I'll believe it. If you read that on the internet, I'm pretty sure it's true.
It's got to be true. 100%.
It's 100%. True. Yes.
Yeah. The characters Carl, Dodie, Macy, Courtney, and Miranda are named and based off of the show creator Emily Kapnick's old school friends and family.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice little ode to them.
Yeah, exactly. As shown in one episode, the show's setting, Sheltered Shrubs, is located in the state of Connecticut.
Well, that's good because nothing else is.
Oh.
I
don't know that we have any listeners in Connecticut, but if we do, I'm sorry.
I don't know if I am.
This is the only Classic Supo show to be rated TVY7. So, which is, I mean, that's not really saying much since it's only saying, must be 7 or older to watch.
So is that like getting to the point that all of the other shows that they've done have been like for everybody and this is the one that has a requirement? Or is this the youngest one that they've had? No,
I think this is the only one that has a requirement. Like the rest of them have been, I'm pretty sure G or whatever the one below this is.
Word.
Yeah. So because some other ones, I don't know all of them, but I know Our Real Monsters was one of them.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't.
Yeah, Wild Thornberries, if you've ever heard of that one.
I have.
And I don't remember what else, but I know they've done a few shows and they do the art for these shows too, which is why they look similar in style.
I was wondering, I'm like, man, this style does have there's a lot of Nickelodeon shows that I felt have this similar style, and Wild Thornberries was definitely one of them.
Yeah, and those are the ones that were produced by the Classic Supo.
They didn't do Rocket Power, did they?
They do Rocket Power? Yes, they did that also. Yeah.
I knew there was something about the animation I didn't care for.
Oh, yeah. No, it was Rocket Power.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any memories of the show? Like, had you heard of it before this suggestion?
No, actually, I constantly got this mixed up with Pepper Ann, which is a totally different show. But I just knew young female ginger girl, and that's all I knew. So I had no idea what this was going to look like or what it would be like.
Yeah, same here. Well, not the confusing it with Pepper Ann, but I just had never really heard of it. Maybe I'd heard it in passing, but by name only. I don't think I've ever seen this show around at all.
And like looking into it, I was very sure that this was going to be a show that I destroyed, you know, with my very cynical worldview towards pretty much everything. I thought I was really going to annihilate this one until I watched it. And then, like, yeah, nope.
Yeah, no, I was afraid at first. Like, I didn't know what to expect at all going into it. So I was like, oh, it's going to be just some typical, like, high school kid show or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, like little girl kid drama sort of show, you know?
Yeah, but it actually really surpassed that for me. And I guess let's go ahead and jump into the episodes we watched for today's show so we can talk about it. Very first episode, highest rated episode, and finally random winner chosen episode. Order may vary depending on how those episodes fall chronologically, but of course we have to start with the very first episode, being The Party, season 1, episode 0. And this is actually the pilot episode, so
yeah,
the art style is drastically different, but the characters are basically the same.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple differences with the characters. I didn't like the pilot that much until a specific moment, and then I was kind of like, okay, I see why this show got picked up. But the animation I thought was terrible in the pilot. I hated it. There was something really claustrophobic feeling about it because there was just so much. There's just so much like in each frame, and everything was just kind of, I mean, drawn kind of sloppily, I felt like, and it just, I did not like the animation at all. And then on top of that, I felt like Ginger wasn't developed very well in this first episode, and her brother was a lot more, I don't want to say stupid, but he was one of those characters that in this episode he is treated more like, he acted more like an animal than a person, and that he like, you know, grunted quite a bit and didn't always talk and just did really weird things. I mean, he stayed weird, but in the episodes after this, he felt like a person. And this one, it was just more like, eh.
Yeah, no, I kind of felt the same way, especially about Carl. He seemed like he was going to be very annoying had he stuck around just like this. So I'm glad that they spent more time developing him. Yes. And so if you're going to watch this show and see this episode first, do not base your thoughts on Carl off of this episode, because he's different. He's the same at his core, but like you said, he feels much more human as opposed to just like a force of nature.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like, it reminds me of, maybe it's the Wild Thornberrys cartoon. There's like a kid that's like a caveman kind of kid or something. Yeah. Like I felt like they were going for that same sort of character with Carl, but maybe toned down a little bit. And then it seems like after the pilot, they were like, nope, not a good idea. And then they went somewhere else with it and did a way better job. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. So in this one, just to put it out there first, Ginger gets an invite to a party at Courtney's house. And Courtney is, I guess, the stereotypical popular girl at school. Yes. And but she can only go if she brings her younger brother, Carl. And that's where he comes into play. And right. Even though it's very rough around the edges, especially animation wise, I like the story. And I thought it was kind of interesting the direction that it went. Yeah, I mean, it did go a direction I didn't like. Well, I kind of expected some of it, but the way that it played out wasn't exactly what I expected. And the problem I had was the first half of this episode was very predictable in that it didn't stand out whatsoever. It felt like it could be any TV show. The girl is like nervous because the popular girl invited her to the party and she doesn't know what to do or how to dress. So she talks to all of her friends. Oh, and then they play spin the bottle. Yeah. And it's like, you know, the whole time that the popular girl was setting her up to do something to her as like entertainment. Like it was going to be a Carrie situation. You get her in there, you do something to embarrass her terribly. And like, you knew that that's where it was going, but they made it so it didn't play out that way, even though that was the one girl's intention. But up until she got to the party, it was such a typical, like it could have been any TV show. And like, it was very unmemorable until that point. Now we have interest in this show because it's got more to it than we expected. Right. And it was kind of also like they set it up to where you thought, well, like you knew that Carl was going to get loose and do something to embarrass her. So because she brings him to the party, she doesn't want him to go inside, and he starts wrecking stuff immediately. So he puts him like to the side of the house, ties him up with like the garden hose.
Yeah.
But as he's struggling to get loose at one point while she's in the party, the hose turns on and it sprays some bushes, and you see that like all these other younger siblings are tied up there too, which is like, that made me laugh. That was funny.
Yeah.
And that was the point that I knew that there was something else to this show than the previous like 8 minutes of this short little episode that I had seen. And it just kind of kept getting better from there, because it's like you were talking about, they do the spin the bottle thing. And of course the bottle ends on the guy she thinks is hot, like the hot guy of the school, who of course looks like Fonzie mixed with Elvis or something, because, that's, I don't know why that's still a stereotype these days, because nobody looks like that. But that's when the ball gets to him and they're about to kiss, and I'm waiting for something embarrassing to happen. Carl and all the other siblings get into the house. They're destroying everything, causing all kinds of stuff. But the guy still, regardless of what's happening, I mean, he sees everything happening, but then he goes and kisses Ginger anyway. And that's when I was like, wow, okay, I didn't expect this to happen. Like, I was expecting her to get super embarrassed because she's awkward and she's nerdy and stuff. But instead they like put a little bit of heart in there. Like, oh no, the hot guy's still kind of a nice guy. Carl didn't really embarrass her. Instead, he kind of like inadvertently saved the party, because she probably would have gotten embarrassed by something that the popular girl did. Yeah, so I was very pleasantly surprised with that.
Yeah, it was cool to see all this younger siblings revolt and crash the party. And it did kind of get turned in a much different direction. And it was one of those, like you were saying, where I was kind of sitting back, just kind of taking it in at first, like, all right, get through this, like thinking I knew what was going to happen. And then it flips it on you. And yeah, it was interesting seeing that kid, the popular kid, go in for the kiss, and then seeing her talk about it with her friends afterward. She was like,
she gets kissed on the cleek,
kissed me right between the lips and the cheek. Yeah.
It was the cleek. And this will tell you too, I just want to say this, because it'll show the big difference between Carl and this one and Carl and the next one. Is that in this one, like when she's trying to get Carl to behave, he makes her promise to give her his toenail clippings.
Oh, that's right.
And then she says, okay, I will, but don't eat them in front of me this time. And I'm like, that's disgusting. So so that's where I'm saying they totally were making him this animalistic sort of character rather than a human. And then when we get into these next episodes, you're going to see that there's a lot of humanity to him.
Yeah, hopefully they didn't carry forward with the toenails thing at all, but at least we don't see it anymore.
But there is weird stuff that he still has going on, but yeah.
So the second episode we watched for today's show was And She Was Gone, season 2, episode 23. This was the highest rated episode. In this one, Ginger enters a creative writing contest, and Miss Zorsky is concerned over the dark subject matter that Ginger has written about.
Ooh, man, this one. This went deep.
Yeah. Okay, what's cool about this one for me is I can directly relate to that in the sense that I had a teacher do that exact same thing for me when I was in either early high school or middle school. I can't remember, but I wrote a poem that was not dark, like gloomy or anything, but it was just like, it had a lot of emotion to it. And so the teacher kind of pulled me to the side and asked me if everything was okay. So in that way, like I instantly knew like what she was feeling because I had been through it myself.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about that after I watched the episode, and it took a little while to really get there. But the idea of in a school having to write poetry, I mean, at the time, anytime I was asked to do that as like a project or something, I thought it was so stupid. And I was like, this is so lame. But from a teacher's standpoint, that's incredibly brilliant because it does give you a little bit of like, it gives students creativity to write something. And I subscribe to this idea that regardless if you're creating something, whether it's writing or if it's music or art or something like that, that you you can't help, if you're being honest about it, you can't help but include your emotions or the way you feel about things in it. And so that gives teachers like this window to see maybe what's going on in your head or something like that, or what's going on behind the scenes without them having to pry or possibly, just straight up ask questions and then overwhelm you or something like that. So I think that's a very intelligent thing to do that I never gave credit to when I was that age.
Yeah, you don't think about it like that. You just think about it as a weird assignment. Or, for me, I liked poetry, so it was fun for me. But at the same time, like you said, you do put your heart into it a little bit when you're doing any kind of creative thing. Like I did visual art throughout most of school too. I mean, I still do that. I still draw stuff. But like back then, a lot of it was kind of deeper because, teenage angst and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you put part of yourself into it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking it to the extreme like some of the adults might suspect. But at the same time, I understand why they have their concerns and why, in this case, why her teacher came up to her and just asked her that if everything was okay, because better safe than sorry in those situations.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. And what's interesting is that like I had a similar experience, but with the opposite end. So basically so I used to write stuff too. And it was about this age, like 7th grade or so that I started to veer in a very dark kind of direction, mentally and psychologically. And I had a lot of issues as a kid and they only got worse as I got older for a while. And I would write stuff, but this wasn't stuff that would be schoolwork because I went to a school district that wasn't good. And there wasn't a whole lot of, they put some money into their music programs, but as far as other arts, there wasn't a lot going on. So there wasn't a lot for writing. There wasn't a lot for drawing and stuff like that. So, for me, it was kind of one of those things where like I would do this stuff, but it was never for a class. But had they assigned us things like this, and I probably would have been pulled aside like you were. Yeah. Because I think people would have noticed it. And I'm like, now I'm kind of like, dang, like it would have been better if they had pulled me aside back then, because I would have benefited from somebody intervening before I got worse. But the other side of that, and like you said, well, in this cartoon, she probably has some sort of like issues going on. And it's probably just when you are that age and getting older. And like I said, for me, it started at that age when I was in 7th grade. You don't understand how things work yet. You don't understand relationships. You don't understand why some people start acting different and why you start feeling different about stuff, because it's all, part of the whole teenage experience. And there is no perfect lesson or no perfect person to tell you exactly how everything's going to go, because nobody knows exactly how you're going to start feeling and reacting to everything. So it's impossible. But the people around her kind of overreacted a little bit. And, like you said, it's better to be safe than sorry. But like too many people got involved and it got a little blown out of proportion. Mm-hmm. To where like everyone was making things worse for her. And that's something I can 100% empathize with, because when I was a teenager, something happened that I was involved in, and that was really bad. And everyone was constantly trying to get me to open up and talk about things, and they were treating me differently, especially my parents. And it caused the opposite effect of what they all wanted, because I became more distant and closed off from everybody, because they all wanted me to deal with it in the way that they thought was appropriate instead of the way that I needed to deal with it. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you just got to make sure that somebody knows you're available and wanting to help them, and giving them a little nudge when they need it is healthy, but overwhelming someone that's already dealing with something that's difficult and overwhelming just compounds the issues tenfold. So that's exactly what I went through. And you can see like in this episode that she's experiencing that same kind of thing. Everyone's just like crowding her with this, oh, there must be something wrong. What's wrong? And she's just like, nothing's wrong. Like, leave me alone. And then she gets worse because of it.
Yeah. And in this case, I think big part of it is when it got out to her classmates who are obviously on the same page where they don't understand what's going on with her, and they're not qualified even as adults to even start to approach the subject. So that just kind of compounded on how much anxiety she was already feeling from this being pushed on her in such a way.
Right. And this story was very much like she basically wrote this poem or like kind of poetic short story about a girl that felt kind of like a puppet being pulled by strings, things like that. And that she was kind of alone in the world, and that what she wanted was to feel free, and that the blissful part of like the happy ending for the girl was that she was able to disappear. And yeah, like on the surface, yeah, that does sound kind of morbid, obviously. Yeah. So that's kind of why people were kind of like, oh my gosh, because I mean, if you want to take it that far, it sounds kind of like a suicidal sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But to Ginger, that's not what it was at all. To her, it was just kind of a transitioning thing. This is where I am, and I wish I had freedom, and I wish I could disappear from the state that I'm in. And then the blissful part is moving on to something better and something new in another plane or another realm or something like that. To her, it wasn't something that dark, but everybody took it that way.
Yeah. And I like that in the process of this, even though it wasn't necessarily a reflection of her, she did learn something about herself. And even with all the pressure, she was able to benefit from this. And I like that she said after discovering this about herself that she liked what she found.
Exactly. Yeah.
She got more in touch with herself. And that's that's the huge benefit to it. And what I really liked and what made me tear up is when she was talking to her mom about it. And that's what got me, because her mom was doing the exact thing that you should do in a situation like that. Like her mom, obviously knowing her better than these other third party adults do, she was telling her how, she was moved by the poem, like it gave her chills. And Ginger was saying like it didn't make you think that I was the person in the story or I was dark or whatever. And she's like, no, like you're a bright, sensitive young woman, the kind of person who understands people's feelings. And that's why you can write about them so beautifully. And just seeing that interaction, like that made me tear up, because I was like, oh, that's so good.
It was a real emotional moment. And it's kind of like, people can have a dark, gloomy kind of side to them and not. And it doesn't have to be a cry for help. I mean, there are a lot of artists and writers and stuff like that is the case, but there's some that aren't. I mean, I really enjoy like Tim Burton style stuff. Like I don't care for a lot of his later movies and things, but if you see his actual like drawings and stuff like that, there's a very dark gloominess to it. But like there's still in some of his like animated movies like Corpse Bride or something like that, there's still some very heartwarming thought-provoking messages and stuff in there that aren't doom and gloom. So it's kind of like you can have a little bit of a dark gothy sort of side to you, but that doesn't mean that it defines everything you are. And I think people have trouble separating the two sometimes.
Yeah, true. And also like a good takeaway from this was, and this came from her mom, was no one knows you better than you know yourself. So don't let people try to convince you that you are someone that you're not. And I thought that was really cool too. And it just like it encapsulates everything that you're kind of feeling, especially growing up where you're questioning everything, where people are trying to tell you should do this, you should do that, or you shouldn't be this or shouldn't be that.
Yeah.
And this is a pivotal moment, I think, for her, where her mom really kind of helped her move forward and not let this kind of drag her down and question herself. Like basically be confident in who you are and be the person that I know you are. Be the happy person that I know you are.
Yeah. And it's like just as like a metaphor I was thinking about, it's kind of like if you have a house that no one's been in before, it's like people are outside the house because it's your house and they see the outside. They don't know what's in the inside. I mean, they make snap judgments on what the house is because all they can see is one part of it. They can't see the rest of it, So it's kind of like, what it is. So you define the house the way the house really is, and they only define it as the parts that they can see. But to them, that's the whole, and it's not the truth.
Yeah, very true.
But like, so as a side plot to this whole thing, as she's kind of going through this, she's starts going to like therapy, like a group therapy and other things like that. And there are some funny moments. There's this one character that was just trying to be depressed and stuff because she wanted attention, and it was kind of funny the way she did it.
Oh yeah.
Especially in the group therapy when the girl got called out for it.
That was Courtney, actually. That was the same girl who threw the party in the pilot episode.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, and I think she put a wig on or something like that.
She might have dyed her hair black.
Yeah, she dyed her hair black or something. It was funny. But there's a side plot going on of Carl and Hoodsey. So they went to like a magic shop and they bought vanishing powder because they wanted to make somebody disappear, and they're trying to figure out who. So they find this one girl, and I can't remember her name. Maybe you do.
Her name was Noelle Sussman. And that's what's funny is
that's right.
What's cool is like she was actually voiced by the person who created this show.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, she was voiced by Emily Kapnick.
And interesting because that girl is so weird. But they wanted to pick the least important person they could come up with, and this was her. This girl Noelle is just super weird, constantly talking to herself and doing karate by herself, and she has finger puppets of some of her classmates that she interacts with by herself, and just so weird. And so they sprinkle this stuff around her desk, and then like she doesn't show up for school the next day, and they think that she disappeared. But it's kind of like because they think they made her disappear, they started paying attention to the things that she did and the person that she was. And then Carl ends up falling in love with her, which is and then is trying to do everything he can to get her to come back. And it turns out that she didn't actually disappear. She transferred to another school.
Yeah, she got transferred across town, but
yeah,
it was just funny watching his feelings develop for her just based on how weird she was. And it's something that is definitely a Carl thing. So it's like, wow, like I never noticed how
weird she was.
Yeah, how weird she was, or how much like me she is, or how much like her I am. You know, it was cool watching it develop, and then seeing how frantic he got when he thought he did make her disappear, and then had to go buy the vanishing or the reverse potion to fix the vanishing powder. And he was like, because, you know, the guy like put the price back to normal at the magic shop. So he's like, oh, what do I do? Yeah. So he like went and sold this weird eyeball in a jar. There's an eyeball in a jar that he had. Like,
yeah, Carl's weird.
And then it was funny seeing him dumping the reappearing potion all over around her desk.
Yeah, exactly. The teacher was like, what the?
It was such a weird side plot, and it sounds kind of dumb, like when we just say it, but it was actually really kind of heartwarming in a way, just watching. And this was a great example of him having a lot more character now, as opposed to the pilot episode. Yeah,
because you really got into his mind a little bit here, and the juxtaposition of the two stories is fantastic because you have the one story where Ginger is writing a poem about disappearing, and all these people are like freaking out about it, thinking she wants to disappear. On the other side of that, you have her younger brother who thinks he's doing magic and makes somebody disappear. And it's only the moments in between him doing the deed and the girl actually disappearing that he starts paying more attention to that girl and starts falling in love with her. You know, and it was a really, really, really well written episode. Like I almost want to be like, wow, this was like the best written episode of a cartoon I think I've encountered. And I think I could stand by that. Like I've never been that impressed by writing, especially for like a children's show. So I was just like, oh my God, like how did they manage to do this?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I see why this is the highest rated. A lot of times when we see these highest rated ones, we're like, like, I guess I could see it. But this one, like, definitely, I cannot see an episode being better than this one, because every angle that it took, like even the subplot was just great, better than a lot of single episodes I see on other shows.
Right. And like, I might be wrong, but I think that this show's received some awards before. Like, I think it's like Emmys or something like that.
I think you're right. I mean, I don't know. I don't have them all written down, but I did read something about that.
Okay. It was nominated 3 times for an Emmy, 2001, 2002, and 2003.
Nice.
So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's pretty impressive that a show like this is getting those kind of nominations.
Well deserved.
Especially one that I never really heard of before.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that I hadn't seen this before.
Right.
So the last episode we watched for today's show was A Lesson in Tightropes, season 3, episode 14. And this was chosen by Fradomon?
Yep, this was chosen by him.
In this one, Darren finally decides to tell Ginger the truth, and he breaks up with her. She returns home where her friends try to comfort her until she eventually cries herself to sleep. It starts out with the breakup, basically. Well, it shows this is Ginger in high school.
Darren is, though, because we saw Darren in the pilot. He was like, he's been friends with Ginger a long time and all the girls. And he had like headgear back then, and it was really squeaky, which was kind of funny.
Yeah. He was like, I think he's Ginger's like best friend, just from her childhood best friend, and now boyfriend, at least coming into this episode.
And he is definitely transitioned from like what looked like, a loser, like dork with headgear on. He's now like has the headgear off. He's taller because they're in high school now. He's an attractive guy. He's on the football team. It sounds like I don't know if he's like the star of the team, but he sounds like he's a pretty popular guy. Mm-hmm. And in contrast to that, Ginger is like the head, like a singer for a band now too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But like, obviously we see Darren's been struggling with something. I mean, us as viewers, we don't know what it is, but at that point, but we quickly learned that he's been spending time with this other girl who I think was a cheerleader named Simone. And I think he's fallen in love with Simone, and he's been struggling with how to tell Ginger about it. So, yeah.
And what I liked in retrospect, because coming into the episode, the way that it opens has this little monologue where Ginger's talking about you basically getting a feeling sometimes where something's not quite right, but you don't know what it is. And while she's saying this, while she's having this monologue, she's passing this other girl in a hallway, and we don't think anything of it at first because we obviously don't know. And then it happens to be that girl that Darren's interested in. And so it was just a cool little foreshadowing of that without giving you any more than was necessary.
He breaks up with her. They're kind of going for a walk, and he breaks up with her, and just I was surprised by how the episode kind of took off in a second direction, but I was surprised at first like how realistic it felt for like, because I think about my first breakup, I was like I think my first breakup I was like 15 or something like that. And I just remember feeling sick to my stomach for days, and just everything felt wrong. Like you can't think about everything else. And like, you just have this like weird emptiness, and you don't know what you're supposed to do. It like rationally, that your life's going to continue on and you'll be doing a lot of the same old things you always do. But like for those few days or weeks or whatever, you feel like you don't know how the world works anymore, and you don't know who you are anymore. And it's just, everything just feels wrong. And the way that she was reacting and describing, it gave me all those same feelings again. Like I was like, that is exactly how it feels.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you like logically, like you said, life's going to go on, but at the time you're so caught up in your own feelings that it doesn't ever feel like you're going to get better or you're going to feel better.
Right. And part of you doesn't want to. There's that part of you that like wants the pain to be over, and you like want them back or something like that. But there's also like this other part. Maybe this is just some people like me that are super cynical and self-destructive. But like, there's also the part of you that just wants to. The feeling of that kind of pain just makes you angry. So you just want to wallow in it and and almost kind of make it worse for yourself too. Like, thankfully Ginger didn't go that route, but you know,
that sounds terrible.
I have problems.
So what ends up happening with this, like I was saying in the beginning, where she cries herself to sleep. Like her mom comes in at a certain point and she's trying to wake her up and she just isn't waking up. And it's like, it's like, what's wrong? Like, why isn't she getting up? And so they end up having to take her to the hospital because at the same time, and this is unrelated, but it's just kind of an unhappy coincidence, is she also has appendicitis.
Yeah, it was like her appendix burst or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets serious, apparently. Like, I mean, it was like, I thought it was going to be like, we caught you just in time. Like, la, la, la. I'm glad you're fixed. But no, it was almost like they weren't quite sure if she was going to make it. And I was like, whoa,
yeah.
like, holy crap.
As they were putting her, as they were giving her the medication to put her to sleep, like she just kind of overhears them talking about like, oh, there's an infection also on top of that. So we need to start operation immediately. And what's great, well, not what's great, I guess. What's interesting is that there's the doctor that is over her at this point is Dave, and he happens to be dating her mom at this time too. And that's something that is new to us coming into this episode. We don't know when it happened exactly, but I don't know. I don't think they're married. I think they're just dating. So
yeah, they're just dating. They're engaged.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but what's great about this and what got me in this episode was Carl of all people.
Yeah, exactly.
Freaking Carl. Like
Carl.
So she's on the operating table. Like the operation was a success and she just needs to sleep and rest it off. And also at the same time, her biological dad has come back into the picture just to, make sure she's okay. And her mom and her biological dad are in the room with her, talking to her, seeing how she is after the operation. Dr. Dave is waiting outside, being respectful to the dad and Ginger's mom. And then Carl comes up and he's like, Dave, like, is she okay? And he's like, yeah. And then Carl asked if he saved her life. And he's like, yeah, I guess I did. And then he looks in the room and sees his dad in there. And the doctor's telling him like, you should go in there because Ginger would want to see you and your family's in there. And he's like, if it's all the same to you, Davo, I think I'll stay out here for a little while, with you. And that was good enough. But then like, without saying anything, like they're just beside each other and he like reaches up and grabs his hand. And that's where I was like, oh, that's so,
I know,
so
man.
Sweet. So sweet.
Like you just talking about it's making me tear up. My God.
I had trouble getting through that without tearing up.
And there's just a lot of cool stuff with that too. Like again, there's another side plot of Dave, the doctor and her biological dad. And it's kind of like, me and Joseph don't know the story about her dad or why, why he's not there anymore and stuff. But like the Dave makes later on approaches him to have a conversation to say, I love them too. And you could tell the dad's pretty standoffish. Mm-hmm. But he does kind of like, he does kind of thank him for being there for Ginger and saving her and stuff like that. But what's interesting too is seeing Carl's anger towards, I'm assuming that's his biological dad also.
Yeah. I
don't know for sure because he calls him by his first name, but like he doesn't want anything to do with him. And he's angry because now his mom is spending a lot of time with their biological dad and less time with Dave. And he can tell that Dave's getting nervous about it. And Carl is really, I don't know if they've had any bonding moments in the past or if this is a new thing, but like Carl's getting upset and worried for Dave. And there was this nice little moment back at their house later where Dave is talking to their mom and is just kind of like, I'm sure that there's a lot of mixed emotions going on with him being back right now. And, you can tell that he's worried about it. And she kind of reassures him. She's like, no, like you're the man that I love. And Carl was outside the door. Like you could tell he was ready to confront his mom and say something when that happened. And then Carl just had this big sigh of relief there. And it was just like, man, like, I mean, we went from that pilot episode where Carl was just this animalistic, like could have been any character kind of kid to like, we've seen him react towards feeling like he's going to lose his sister. We see him react towards having this anger with his biological dad to loving this, what will be his stepdad and wanting his relationship, to work with Carl's mom. And it's just like, God, there's just so much depth to this character that I thought was going to be such a throwaway.
Yeah, they gave him so much complexity, and it's great because even though, Ginger is the main character, it doesn't feel like anybody's like a side character. Everyone has their own complexities to them and their own development. And that's just great to see in the show. Like, even though this show's title character is Ginger, like, it's about the world around her too. And that's, it's kind of rare to see that in a cartoon, especially.
And the other great part about this episode too is so when Ginger's like recovering from the appendix thing, she's like, that was a good metaphor for the breakup, because like I've said before, you kind of feel like you're dying going through a really emotional breakup or something like that. And I mean, the metaphor there is like she literally was almost dying, But as she's recovering and stuff like that, she's still thinking about Darren, and people come visit her, and she still says that it's so stupid. Like, regardless of what happened to me, that's all I can think about is him, and why hasn't he come to see me? Blah blah blah. But I love that they gave us his point of view, and that he's not trying to be cold or anything. He had all the intention of seeing her, and then he was like, I don't know how she's going to react. I might make things worse for her. And he wants to write her a card, and he can't think of what to write and make things better. And he throws it away. And then he's just like, maybe she would be better off if I didn't contact her. So he leaves, but he's so broken up about it. Like he cries a few times, and he's just like, and I got to give them credit too, because they didn't make Simone, who I think in any other show, she would be kind of like a brat or something, but she was kind of like, obviously not a huge fan of Ginger, but she kind of understood what was going on with Darren. And at one point though, she felt a little jealous. She was just kind of like, maybe I should just go. And it wasn't like you need to pick one or the other. It was you obviously need to deal with something, and we shouldn't be talking right now as you're figuring this out. But then he was like, no. And he goes with her, trashes the letter and stuff like that. But I like that we got to see how much he was struggling with it, because, in a breakup and stuff like that, it's not like it isn't hard for the person that does the dumping. I mean, some people are lifeless and horrible people that are totally fine with it and enjoy that kind of thing. Yeah. But there's plenty of people out there that are just as broken up about doing the dumping as the ones that get dumped. And he was one of them. Like, he doesn't know how to be her friend anymore. And he knows that she needed the friend that he was, and he couldn't be that. And so he was ripped apart about it. Yeah.
And seeing his letter resurface in her room, which I like the way they did it, where
and unfinished.
He threw it in the trash, and he brought it, and the woman who was taking the trash, like, she brought it in Ginger's room to empty hers, and she spotted the letter in there. Ginger did. So they took it out and read it, and it was unfinished. And I like that it was almost like a mind-blowing thing for Ginger what the cleaning lady said, because Ginger was concerned because it just kind of got cut off. It cut it off at a pivotal point where it was about to explain what he was feeling. And the cleaning lady said, like, even though she was concerned that it wasn't finished, she said, well, but he did finish it. It just doesn't have an ending. And that I thought was really cool, because it's like, yeah, he finished the relationship, but that doesn't mean your friendship is over. It doesn't mean that life is over.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
It was, and she, like, Ginger didn't even say anything after that. She couldn't say anything. Like, it was just, you could see it in her face.
And then it cut to black, like, immediately after you see Ginger's face.
Yeah. That was so cool.
It was good. And man, that is such a, like, an intelligent way to convey that idea that just because a certain aspect of a relationship is over, that doesn't mean everything is over.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of up to you in that way, and there's some people that, that's going to be the case just because neither side can find a way to move on as something else. But yeah, it's just kind of like, and plus you're always going to still have those memories unless we get to a point where you can have memories extracted, which will probably be in the near future, but you still have the memories. So, I mean, there's still, like, if you had a great time hiking this cliff together here, the end of the relationship doesn't mean that happy occasion or that happy thought never happened. You still have that.
Yeah. So the show is just like full of these like fantastic metaphors and just like parallel situations happening, like in the previous episode with Carl and Ginger both going through different kind of things with vanishing or disappearing. And so it's just packed full of greatness for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, Chris, looks like it's about time we call on our inner kids to go and deal with all the drama and confusing emotions that high school has to offer. Then, assuming they're not going through their too cool to talk to us phase, see what they thought of the show as told by Ginger.
I was ready to think this cartoon was going to be really stupid and lame because it's like, all from some weird girl's point of view and she probably has cooties, but I really liked it. And I feel like there's a lot I could learn from Ginger. And I kind of want to be her friend, so long as she ditches her other stupid friends like Dodie, who are kind of annoying. But I did give this cartoon 5 bowls of toenail clipping cereal out of 5. And now I kind of don't want to grow up because everything seems really depressing and a little too real.
All I can say is wow. I feel like this show really gets me. It does a great job of capturing those pivotal moments in a child's life using very likable, very relatable characters led by the flawed but lovable Ginger. Even though things got a little dark at times, there's a good amount of comical levity brought to the table as well, primarily in the form of Carl and Hoodsy. Overall, I'd give As Told by Ginger 5 big bowls of Vanishing Powder Puff cereal out of 5, and after watching the show, I kinda wish Dr. Dave was my dad too. You know, in case I ever need my life saved. Pretty sure my real dad doesn't know the first thing about appendixes. Appendies? Appendi? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why I, use WebMD. So then if I ever do need my appendix taken out, like I can just look it up or like YouTube it or something.
Yeah,
the internet's great for surgery.
Yeah, DIY appendix removal.
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing you can't do now. And I like that.
There are things you shouldn't do, but you can still find a way to do it.
Like eating laundry pods. Don't do that anymore, guys.
Oh my gosh,
don't,
please.
Don't eat laundry pods. That's you're dumb. You're dumb. Why? Don't do that.
I don't. That's one of those things I don't get at all. I don't understand.
We're smarter than that. let's not do that.
I would hope so.
So do you have any closing comments on As Told by Ginger?
Yeah, As Told by Ginger was... It just felt like so real. Like this was one of those things that even though it was a cartoon and it was aimed at kids or teens or people above 7 or whatever, it's like anybody can watch this and find something to relate to, whether it's in their younger years or even going through currently. These are life lessons that you learn as you grow, but it's interesting and really kind of cool to see these other characters go through a lot more intense situations than I thought they would. Like I thought it was going to be very basic coming into it, but after leaving just these 3 episodes, it's like, man, like they really touched on some stuff that I thought was unique to myself. And so it's great seeing someone else's take on it and almost being able to learn a little bit more about yourself as you go through it as well. So yeah, overall, just a wonderful show. Yeah,
this is absolutely the most surprised I've ever been by a cartoon, especially one that we've done for this show. I didn't expect to like it, but I ended up loving it. It's incredibly deep, way deeper than anything else that we've ever watched, and it deals with these super tough emotions that they handle in the most amazing ways. And I think that in a way that kids and teens could understand. And even as an adult, it felt really therapeutic to watch, and it really tugged at my heartstrings because there's so much I could relate to, just like you said, and so much that I could see other people that I've known would be able to relate to as well. Like it honestly feels like watching it, I have those same kind of feelings I get like if I go through a therapy session or something like that. It's just kind of like you are reminded of things, like things come to the surface and you kind of deal with them, and here you're kind of doing it vicariously, but I was feeling those same emotions and felt like I was dealing with the same things that they were in these episodes, which sounds so weird. Like for someone that hasn't watched the show or sat down and experienced something like that, it probably sounds really superficial, but like in honest to God, I was moved through these episodes in ways I did not expect whatsoever. So I would honestly, I would probably watch more of this. In fact, I think I probably will. And I recommend it for all ages, whether you're a child, adult, teenager, it doesn't matter. There's going to be something that you can absorb and take away from this.
Yeah, like even going back to what you're saying a little bit, this is only the 3 episodes that we watched, and one of them was just the pilot, which wasn't even like an official episode, I guess, quote unquote. But it was like just watching these 3 and not knowing the characters too well, you're still able to feel so much from them. So I can't even imagine like if you've watched so far through it that you're attached to the characters and what they're going through. So even just this small sampling gave me some real feeling, like it really brought out. It's rare for something like this to bring tears, but it was, I guess, in the same way where you were saying it was therapeutic. It was like that for me as well. But seeing the resolution of some of these stories and seeing just these sweet moments, it wasn't sad tears at all. It was just these like happy tears, like, oh, I'm so happy for these fictional drawn characters. And that's such a
Right.
there's such a weird thing to say, but it really tugs at your heartstrings. And I think if you are an emotional person by any, just by any stretch of the imagination, that you will get something out of this and you'll definitely take something away from it.
Oh yeah, like as like as much of a I can be about certain cartoons we watch and poking fun at people. I am like by default I'm an empath. So so I was definitely like moving through all of these emotions as they were coming through the TV screen. So it was a trip, man. It was a real trip going through all this stuff. Yeah. And I feel like anyone that, like you said, that we've only watched the 3 episodes. I feel like anyone that's watched this entire series has probably matured way beyond us and probably has a way better sense of themselves than we ever will.
Yeah, exactly. Like, forget paying for therapy session. Just watch As Told by Ginger all the way through.
Exactly. Like I'm just like, I can't even afford going to therapy anymore, but now that's okay because I can watch As Told by Ginger.
It sounds so weird, but there's a hint of truth to that. An actual truth.
There really is.
Yeah. So thank you, Fradomon, for suggesting this. This was a very pleasant surprise.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. You now like pick some more, please.
Yes,
we'll add
please. Well, listeners, it looks like our milk supply is now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. And next week, we'll be watching
SWAT Cats, submitted via Facebook by Jeff Carruthers and also by our friend Putty over a beer.
Ah, that's awesome, man. I love SWAT Cats. I can't wait.
I barely remember it, but I do remember it. But yeah, like, I mean, we had 2 people recommend this one, so we definitely needed to get to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited.
And Putty hasn't really led us astray. He gave us Jackie Chan Adventures, and Street Sharks.
Oh, so he has led us astray, but he's
but in a good way for that one. That was just fun.
Yeah,
it was a fun bad.
Fun bad. Yeah, that's true.
Fun bad.
True. It was not Jossum though. I'll say that.
It was not Jossum, but maybe SWAT Cats will be Jossum.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with a new thing for SWAT Cats, but for now, I know it's going to be Jossum.
Sweet.
Once again, I'm Joseph,
and I'm Chris.
We'll see you next Saturday.
Presented by Nerdsloth,
a place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.